To pay off my debts, I married a female CEO in a vegetative state. Since she couldn't hear me anyway, I treated her as my own personal confessional. Getting dumped by my first love, farting during a job interview, crying and calling the cops because I was terrified of cockroaches. I spilled every embarrassing secret from my 26 years of life, more thoroughly than if I'd turned myself into the police. Until one morning, 3 years later, she opened her eyes and grabbed my wrist. Who did you say you had a crush on yesterday? Say it again. When Song-yi slid the contract across the table to me, I was eating instant noodles, my third bucket. Not because I was hungry, it was because my landlord had just changed the locks, and all I had with me was this case of instant noodles and half a will to live. The terms are simple. Song-yi adjusted her glasses and tapped the bolded text on the contract. Register your marriage with Miss Shen Tinglin. Stay with her for no less than 4 hours a day, and you'll get 30,000 yuan a month with full social insurance and housing fund. I froze mid-slurp. 30,000? 30,000. Full benefits? Full benefits. I put down my chopsticks and wiped my mouth. What does she look like? Song-yi pulled a photo out of her folder and slid it over. I glanced at it, then stared again, flipping the photo over to check if it said for reference only on the back. It didn't. This woman is in a vegetative state. Car accident. She's been in a coma for 2 years. Her vital signs are stable, but there's no sign of her waking up. I swallowed hard. Let's be real, if Shen Tinglin were awake, I wouldn't even be worthy of tying her shoes. The woman in the photo had a sharp chin, a straight nose, and a cold, unapproachable intensity in her eyes. She was the kind of person who stands on top of a CBD skyscraper looking down at everyone else. And I was the one everyone else stepped on. Why me? Song-yi closed the folder. The Shen family side branches are eyeing Miss Shen's fortune. We need a legal husband to stand in the way. She gave me a once over, head to toe and back again. You have no connections, no power, no resources. You don't even have a place to live. You won't have any ulterior motives, because you could never reach that high. I gripped my instant noodle fork tighter. Is that a compliment or an insult? It kinda sounds like both. Are you signing or not? Song-yi checked her watch. If you say no, the next candidate is waiting downstairs. I stared at the 30,000 yuan on the contract. Then I stared at the red number on my Huabei bill on my phone. 23,700元. I gritted my teeth, threw down my fork, and signed. On the day of our marriage registration, Song-yi brought Shen Tinglin in a wheelchair. Shen Tinglin wore a light gray cashmere coat, her head resting on the wheelchair's soft headrest. Long hair falling over her shoulders, eyes closed. She was so still, still as a painting. The clerk looked at her, then at me, scanning me up and down 3 times. My t-shirt had instant noodle soup stains. And there was a hole in the knee of my jeans, not fashion, just a real hole. This is your wife? Yes. In her condition Song-yi handed over a stack of legal documents, hospital certificates, and notarized papers. The clerk flipped through them for 5 minutes. All the paperwork is in order. Just press your fingerprint here. I pressed mine. Then Song-yi held Shen Tinglin's hand, dipped it in ink, and pressed hers too. A red marriage certificate was handed over. I, Lucia, 26 years old with a negative bank balance, officially became the legal husband of Shen Tinglin, daughter of the late Shen Jin, founder of Shen Group, and its current chairwoman. Ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. That afternoon, Song-yi took me to Shen Tinglin's private care villa. It was a converted standalone villa, with rockeries and a koi pond in the yard. The house was temperature and humidity controlled, with a faint sandalwood scent in the air. I stood at the door, too scared to go in, convinced my shoes would dirty the floors. You'll live here from today on. Song-yi handed me the keys. The bedroom is on the 2nd floor. Miss Shen's room is on the east side of the 1st floor. Stay with her 4 hours a day. Talk to her, read to her, play music, whatever you want. Talk to a person in a vegetative state? Song-yi paused, her voice turning slightly colder. Studies show consistent auditory stimulation helps with neural recovery in comatose patients. Oh. And one more thing. She glanced back at me before leaving. Don't do anything to hurt Miss Shen. Every room in this house has security cameras. The door closed. I stood alone in the empty bedroom, looking at the woman on the bed with her eyes closed. The heart monitor beeped steadily. Quiet. Too quiet. So quiet it made my skin crawl. I pulled a chair up to the bed and stared at her face for 10 seconds. Her long eyelashes didn't move at all, like two folded little fans. I cleared my throat. Hello, Ba Shen. My name is Lucia. Starting today I'm your husband in name only. No response. Of course there wasn't. So, I scratched my head. What's your Wi-Fi password? After a week of living with my comatose wife, I made a discovery. She might be the best listener in the world. She never interrupts, never rolls her eyes, never calls you useless. And she definitely never screenshots your conversations and posts them to Moments. So on the 8th day, I officially promoted Shen Tinglin to my personal confessional. Ba Shen, I gotta tell you something. I'd peeled an apple into a lumpy mess and set it on the nightstand, not that. She could eat it anyway, and leaned back in the chair with my legs crossed. I had a crush on a senior girl in college. Long hair, looked so cool playing basketball. I worked up the courage to slip her a love letter, but she thought it was an anonymous tip-off, and handed it straight to the student counselor. The counselor called me into his office and asked if I had a problem with the school cafeteria. The heart monitor beeped on. Shen Tinglin's eyelashes didn't flinch. I kept talking. And once, I farted during a job interview. Not the quiet kind you can sneak out. The kind that stakes a claim on the room. There were 3 interviewers, and they all froze. You could practically smell my unemployment hanging in the air. They said they'd get back to me. They never did. Probably still waiting for the smell to clear. I glanced at her, not a single reaction. Duh. It's not like she's faking it. But for some reason I kept going, getting more and more into it. Maybe it was because I hadn't talked to anyone in so long. Or maybe it was because she never laughed at me. Days passed, and my confessional time slowly grew from 4 hours a day to 5, then 6. And the things I talked about got more and more ridiculous. Boss Shen, you know why I'm in so much debt? I took out loan sharks when my mom got sick. Then she passed away and I couldn't pay it back. The interest piled up until it was more than I could ever pay back, even if I worked like a mule. When I said that, my voice softened without me noticing. The heart monitor kept beeping like always. I rubbed my face and changed the subject. Anyway, guess what drama I watched last night? A Korean drama. The kind where the guy and girl share an umbrella in the rain. I cried during it. Don't tell anyone, especially not my buddy Zhao Tiju. He'd laugh at me for the rest of my life. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and showed her Zhao Tiju's Moments post, a photo of him shirtless on a construction site eating a boxed meal, with the caption, "Eat hard, live hard." This guy's my best friend. I lent him 1,000 yuan last time, and he still hasn't paid me back. Every time I bring it up he says next time for sure. What next time? Next life? I put my phone away and looked at Shen Tinglin's face again. The light hit the side of her face. Her skin was impossibly fair, and there was a tiny, almost invisible mole on the tip of her nose. You're really beautiful. As soon as I said it I froze. I mean, just objectively speaking. That's all. Why was I even explaining myself to a person in a vegetative state? I stood up, brushed off my pants, and walked to the door. Then I turned back, threw away the lumpy peeled apple, and set a cup of warm water on the nightstand instead. Not that she could drink it either. Nurse Xiao Zheng came to change dressings every day. Every time she saw me talking to Shen Tinglin her eyes welled up. Mr. Lu, you're so devoted. You stay by Miss Shen's side every day, talking to her for hours. I was in the middle of complaining to Shen Tinglin about the unreasonable property fees at the next building. Over when I turned to her. It's nothing special. I mean it. I've been a nurse for years, and I've never seen a husband as good as you. Xiaojiang wiped the corner of her eye. If you knew we were just debating which takeout place has the best garlic sliced pork, you probably wouldn't be so moved. Miss Shen can definitely feel it. Xiaojiang looked at me earnestly. She can feel your love. I laughed awkwardly. That whole she can feel it thing. That can't be real, right? No way. Absolutely no way. I glanced up at the security camera in the corner of the ceiling. The red light was on. Song Yi doesn't actually watch the footage every day, does she? No way, right? Probably not. On the 47th day of staying with Shen Tinglan, I met Shen Boyan, Shen Tinglan's biological uncle, and the acting chairman of Shen Group. When he showed up at the door of the Care Villa, he had two sharp-suited lawyers and an assistant with a briefcase behind him, looking like an inspection team here to audit the books. Mr. Lu Ci. Shen Boyan was in his early 50s, well-kept, with immaculately combed hair. His coat cost more than I made in 3 months. He looked at me like I was a stray cat squatting by the door, half disgust, half condescending pity. Sit down. He gestured to the living room sofa. This was Shen Tinglan's villa, and he was the one telling me to sit. I didn't move, not out of pride. I just had half a pack of spicy sticks in my pocket, and I didn't want them digging into my butt when I sat down. Fine, stand then. Shen Boyan didn't mind. He sat down straight away, crossed his legs and said, "You should know exactly where you stand. A penniless kid, living in my niece's villa and spending my niece's money, all because of a marriage certificate." He flicked a speck of dust off his cuff. "To put it bluntly, you're nothing but a high-end caregiver." One of the lawyers handed over a document at just the right moment. "This is a property waiver agreement." Shen Boyan pushed it across the table. "Sign it and I'll give you 50,000 yuan a month, 20,000 more than you're getting now. If Tinglan really never wakes up, you'll get an extra lump sum on top. You can walk away with your dignity intact." I looked down at the document. It was full of dense legal jargon, but the core message was plain enough. Give up all claim to Shen Tinglan's inheritance. Every last bit of it. "Mr. Shen," I looked up at him. "Are you here because you care about your niece, or because you care about her money?" The smile on Shen Boyan's face froze for a fraction of a second. Both lawyers looked up at the same time. "Young man," his tone stayed even, but his eyes had gone cold. "Smart people make smart choices. You're an outsider. Legally, I'm her husband. A temporary shield we brought in," Shen Boyan went on like he hadn't heard me. "Don't think a marriage certificate means you've hit the big time. The Shen family's affairs run deep. You're way out of your depth." I set the document down and pushed it back. "I won't sign it." Shen Boyan stared at me for 5 full seconds. Then he stood up and straightened his collar. "Don't be so impulsive, young man. Go home and think it over." He stopped at the door. "I hear you talk to her every day?" "Yeah, what about?" "Just chatting. Telling her the news, talking about the weather." Shen Boyan let out a soft, dry laugh. "Talking to a dead person. What's the point?" He used the words dead person. I clenched my fist until my knuckles popped. But I said nothing. The door clicked shut. A car drove away. I went back to her room, pulled up a chair, and stared at Shen Tinglan's face for a long time. The monitor beeped steadily, like a metronome. "Your uncle was here." His face was uglier than my Huabi debt. He was wearing a coat that probably cost enough to cover 2 months of my interest payments. I propped my feet up on the edge of the bed, hands behind my head. He wanted me to sign some waiver agreement. Basically, he wants me out of his way. I didn't sign it. I turned to look at her. The lamp cast soft shadows across her face. Don't get me wrong. I didn't refuse because of the money. Mostly because his attitude sucked. Calling you a dead person? What kind of uncle talks about his own niece like that? Boss Shen, when you wake up, you should give him a piece of your mind. I paused. But if you never wake up, I'll do it for you. I laughed at my own words. With my track record, I can barely take care of myself. How am I supposed to take on Shen Boyan? Yeah, right. But the words were out there now, impossible to take back. I stood up and tucked the covers around her. I was almost at the door when something occurred to me, so I turned back, pulled half a pack of spicy gluten sticks out of my pocket, and set them on the nightstand. For you. Weilong brand. Big gluten sticks, original flavor. Next time your uncle shows up, throw these at him. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed up all night looking up public information about Shen Group. In the past 2 years, Shen Boyan had done a lot under the name of acting chairman, selling off subsidiaries, mortgaging assets, bringing in strategic investors. I don't know much about business, but I know basic logic. If someone actually wanted their niece to get better, they wouldn't be in such a hurry to sell off everything she owned. I flipped my phone face down on my chest and stared at the ceiling. Lucy, what the hell are you doing? You're just a caregiver. You get paid to do your job, that's it. But Shen Boyan's words kept ringing in my head. Talking to a dead person. I rolled over. I'd talk to Song Yi tomorrow. 3 months later, Shen Boyan called an emergency board meeting at Shen Group. There was only one item on the agenda, given Shen Tinglin's prolonged coma. They proposed launching a chairman's succession process. In plain terms, the niece isn't waking up, so it's time for someone else to take her seat. I only found out that morning. Song Yi sent me a WeChat message, 4 words only, this afternoon. Then an address. Shen Group headquarters, 47th floor, main conference room. I stood at the door in a borrowed suit, and the receptionist looked me up and down 3 times. Hello, who are you here to see? Meeting. ... Which company are you with? I'm not with any company. I held up the marriage certificate. I'm Shen Tinglin's husband. The receptionist went through 3 stages of shock, confusion, and disbelief before finally calling to confirm. After she hung up, she looked at me like I was some kind of rare animal and escorted me to the elevator. When I pushed open the conference room door, a dozen pairs of eyes snapped toward me. Both sides of the long table were packed with people in suits and ties, stacks of documents in front of them. Shen Boyan sat at the head of the table, his nameplate reading acting chairman. When he saw me, he looked like he'd just found a hair in his noodles. Lucy, what are you doing here? Coming to the meeting. I pulled out an empty chair and sat down. I'm Shen Tinglin's legal husband. Since she can't attend, I have the right to exercise her shareholder rights on her behalf. The room went silent for 2 seconds. The lawyer to Shen Boyan's right flipped through some documents, then glanced up at him. I knew exactly what that look meant. He's right. Shen Boyan's face darkened. What could you possibly have to say here? You don't know the first thing about this business. I don't have anything fancy to say, I shrugged. But if you hold a vote today, I can cast a no vote on Shen Tinglin's behalf. She holds 38% of the shares. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 2 degrees. 38%. Even with all the proxies Shen Boyan held, and all the directors he'd won over, he only had a little over 40% total. 1 no vote from me, and his whole succession process was dead in the water. Shen Boyan slammed his pen down on the table. What do you know? Shen Tinglin has been in a coma for over 2 years. This company needs a real leader. She's not dead yet. I said those 3 words softly, but everyone in the room heard them. Shen Boyan's mouth twitched. You, Mr. Shen. I leaned back in my chair. I don't know much about running a company, but I do know one thing. What's that? If you don't hold the position, you don't get to do the job. Shen Tinglin is the chairman. She's not dead, and she hasn't been declared brain dead. Legally, she's still the head of Shen Group. So what's this vote really about? Do you want to be chairman, or do you want to be your niece's gravedigger? Silence. Total silence. A young female director sitting in the corner bowed her head, the corner of her mouth twitching up in a smile. Shen Boyan's chest rose and fell with barely contained anger. His lawyer leaned in and whispered something in his ear. Shen Boyan took a deep breath and closed the documents in front of him. Today's meeting is adjourned. He looked at me, his rage barely hidden. Lucy, you'd better be sure you know what you're doing. I stood up and buttoned my borrowed suit jacket. I'm very sure. I'm looking after things for my wife. As I turned to leave, I heard him growl through gritted teeth behind me. Meeting adjourned. That night, back in the care villa, I dragged my chair to Shen Tinglin's bedside and laced my hands behind my head. Wifey, your husband was so cool at your company today. I went up against a whole table of people all by myself. Your uncle's face turned green, exactly the same color as the rockery in your yard. Too bad you didn't see it. If you had ... I paused. You'd probably fall in love with me. I laughed at my own joke. Just kidding. Don't take it seriously. Someone like you would never go for someone like me. But still, I stared up at the chandelier on the ceiling, my voice softening without me noticing. It felt good being in that conference room today. Nobody ever paid me any mind before. Today, every single one of them was looking at me. Even if they were all thinking, who the hell is this guy? At least they were looking. I tilted my head to look at her. Shen Tinglin's long eyelashes rested against her eyelids, perfectly still. Say, what if you actually wake up one day? How am I supposed to explain all this to you? Nah, I'm overthinking it. You're never gonna wake up anyway. I reached for the pack of spicy sticks on the nightstand, tore it open, and took a bite. As I chewed, my nose suddenly stung. Probably just the spice. 8 months after marrying Shen Tinglin, I realized something. I'd started to care about her. Not in a romantic way. Not at first anyway. It was more like a habit. Every morning the first thing I did after waking up was go downstairs to check if her vitals were normal. Every time I walked into her room, I'd check if her covers were straight, and if her pillow was at the right angle. I'd watch closely during shift changes, making sure every step of the nurse's work was done correctly. Once, Xiaozhang's hand shook while changing an IV, and the needle shifted 0.5 millimeter. Sister Zhang, it's off. Huh? It looks fine to me. 0.5 millimeter off. Xiaozhang looked up at me, her expression odd. Mr. Liu, how can you even tell? Because I've been watching for 8 months. I didn't say it out loud. I just mumbled just a feeling and turned to get some water. That night, as usual, was confessional time. I sat by the bed trimming her fingernails. Her hands were pale with long, slender fingers. Her nails grew slowly, but I'd trimmed them at least 30 times in 8 months. Ba Shen, let me give you your daily health report. Blood pressure normal, heart rate steady, temperature 36.5 degrees. Way more stable than my life. I set her hand back down on the blanket but didn't let go right away. Her fingertips were cool. I squeezed them gently, trying to warm them up. Why are your hands always so cold? Were they always like this? Or is it ... I looked at her face. The hallway light seeped through the gap in the curtains, softening the lines of her profile, taking the edge off that sharp, unapproachable look she had in her photo. Has anyone ever warmed them for you? I regretted it the second the words left my mouth. That was stupid. I let go of her hand and leaned back. Let me tell you something serious. Your uncle's been making a lot of moves lately. Last week he signed off on that cultural tourism project your dad left to some shady company. Song Yi said the legal representative of that company is your uncle's brother-in-law. Also, he transferred Lao Zheng from the finance department and replaced him with one of his own people. Song Yi told me to keep an eye out and see if I can dig up any evidence. I pulled out my phone and flipped through a few photos I had taken secretly that day, shots of Shen Boyuan shaking hands with that brother-in-law at the entrance of a hotel. Look, this one's clear, right? I squatted behind the flower bed for 2 hours to get it. I got 9 mosquito bites. I held out my arm to show her, even though she couldn't see. If you wake up someday, you have to reimburse me for these mosquito bites. I put my phone away and fell silent for a moment. Ba Shen, wake up soon. I used to say that casually. This time I realized I meant it. I reached out to smooth the hair scattered on her pillow. My fingertip brushed her ear, warm and soft to the touch. My heart skipped a beat. I snatched my hand back like I'd been burned. Lucy, are you out of your mind? She's your wife in name only and essentially your employer. You're a caregiver making 30K a month. What are you even thinking? I took 3 deep breaths, stood up, and pushed the chair back into place. Going to sleep. Good night. I walked to the door, stopped, turned back, and tucked the corner of the blanket in again. Good night for real this time. Don't have any weird dreams. I couldn't tell if I was saying that to her or to myself. I closed the door to her room and stood in the hallway, wiping my face. My palms were sweaty. Just then my phone vibrated. A message from Song Yi. Shen Boyuan is calling a second emergency board meeting next week. He's won over more directors this time. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I replied with 2 words, got it. Then I typed another line. Did Shen Tinglin's finger twitch today? When I was trimming her nails, I felt her index finger curl a little. Sent. 30 seconds later, Song-yi replied, the medical team monitors her regularly. There are no signs of awakening so far. It was probably an involuntary muscle spasm. I stared at the words involuntary muscle spasm. I put my phone away and went upstairs. That night I had a dream. In the dream, Shen Tinglin opened her eyes and looked at me. She said something, but I couldn't for the life of me remember what it was. Shen Boyan meant business this time. He hired the biggest law firm in the city, put together a team of 6 lawyers, and filed a petition with the C.Art to declare my marriage to Shen Tinglin invalid, citing procedural defects in the marriage registration. The grounds filled 3 full pages, with the core argument that Shen Tinglin lacked civil capacity at the time of registration, and the marriage was entered into non-voluntarily. At the same time, he hired private investigators who dug up every last detail of my life. 1 demerit for fighting in high school dug up. 2 failed courses in college dug up. The loan sharks I borrowed from for my mom's medical bills dug up. There were even photos of me gaming all night at an internet cafe. Shen Boyan printed 6 copies of this perfect deadbeat resume, and sent one to every director of Shen Group. The note attached read, "This is Shen Tinglin's husband." I saw the file in Song-ye's office. I flipped through it page by page. Every page felt like a slap in the face. But what stung the most wasn't the embarrassing past, all of that was true. It was the photo attached to the last page. It was my mom. They dug up photos of my mom in the hospital and put them in the file, with a caption, "His mother passed away due to insufficient medical resources caused by debt problems." Like they were analyzing the depreciation of some object. I set the file back on the desk. My fingers were shaking, but not out of fear. Song-yi? How much of what Shen Boyan has can actually get this marriage annulled? Song-yi adjusted her glasses. Legally it's difficult but not impossible. The key is how the judge rules on the validity of Miss Shen's chain of authorization. So there's a risk. I nodded. Then we won't let him get that far. That night, I sat by Shen Tinglin's bed as usual, but I didn't say a word. First time ever. I sat there for a long time, staring at the numbers on the heart monitor. 68, 69, 67, steady. Like she had no idea what was going on. Boss Shen. My voice was a little hoarse when I spoke. Your uncle dug up every last embarrassing thing about me. Bad education, bad income, bad looks, bad family. He's right. I don't deserve you. How can someone as broken as me be your shield? I bowed my head, lacing my fingers together and pressing them to my forehead. If I get kicked out, who's gonna tell you jokes? When I said that, I tried to smile. One couldn't. And ... I took her hand. It was cold. Cold as always. I wrapped her hand in both of mine and squeezed it tight. And your hands are always so cold. And you can't tuck yourself in. The hallway light outside flickered, probably a loose connection somewhere. I stood up and tucked her hand back under the covers. Don't worry. I won't let him get away with this. No one's gonna touch what's yours. I walked to the door and glanced back one last time. Shen Tinglin lay there, still as if she'd never wake up. But the number on the monitor flickered. 68, 69. Then back to 68. I didn't notice. That night, I called Zhao Tiju. What's up, bro? It's the middle of the night. Do you know anyone in the legal field from the construction site? Someone who's really good in court. Bro, did you get in trouble with the law? No, I just need a favor. Alright, I'll ask around. But bro, that 1,000 yuan I owe you. Next time for sure. I hung up. Typical. Real brothers, huh? Shen Boyan scheduled the hearing for a Wednesday afternoon. At the 7th courtroom of the Municipal Intermediate People's Court. All 6 members of his legal team showed up, sitting in a row with stacks of documents piled high in front of them. The lineup was so impressive I half thought I was on trial for some major felony. On my side, a 28-year-old female lawyer named Cheng Yan. Zhao Tiju found her through the legal aid program at his construction site. Relax, Lawyer Cheng said, biting into a Ruggiamo 5 minutes before the hearing started. More people doesn't mean more of a case. I'm worried they have a solid case too. Then we'll see whose case is stronger. She stuffed the last bite into her mouth. brushed the crumbs off her hands, and said, "Let's go." As soon as the hearing started, Shen Boyan's lead lawyer played his first card. Presiding Judge Ms. Shen Tinglin was in a prolonged coma at the time of marriage registration, and lacked civil capacity. Pursuant to Article 1051 of the Civil Code of the People's Republic of China, this marriage is void. He submitted a medical assessment report. This assessment report from the Municipal First People's Hospital confirms that Ms. Shen Tinglin was in a persistent vegetative state on the date of registration. The judge flipped through the report and looked toward us. "What is the defense's position?" Chung Yan stood up, calm and unhurried. "Presiding Judge, the defense does not dispute Ms. Shen Tinglin's medical condition. However, we believe the core issue of this case is not Ms. Shen Tinglin's capacity." She pulled a document out of her bag. "It lies with this notarized power of attorney. 3 months before the car accident, Ms. Shen Tinglin signed a full power of attorney at a notary office, entrusting Ms. Song Yi, her legal representative, with handling personal affairs including marriage registration. This power of attorney took effect automatically when Ms. Shen Tinglin lost capacity. The chain of authorization is legal, and the scope of authority is clear." Shen Boyan's lawyer frowned and flipped through his documents. "Furthermore," Chung Yan pulled out another document. "This is a statement of intent written in Ms. Shen Tinglin's own hand while she was conscious. It explicitly states, 'If I lose capacity due to an accident, I authorize Song Yi to arrange all matters on my behalf, including but not limited to personal safety protection measures.'" She closed the document. "Marriage registration is part of those protection measures. The authorization is legal, the procedures are compliant, and there are no defects whatsoever." Shen Boyan's lawyers whispered among themselves for a moment. The lead lawyer stood up. "Even if the power of attorney is valid, Ms. Shen Tinglin never expressed any intention to marry Mr. Lu Ci. This marriage is entirely the work of a stranger." Objection. Chung Yan raised her hand. "Is the plaintiff questioning the decision-making authority of the legal representative? If so, the plaintiff must first prove the power of attorney invalid. If the power of attorney is valid, then the representative's decisions within the scope of authority are legally effective and do not require subsequent ratification by the principal." The judge nodded. "Does the plaintiff dispute the validity of the power of attorney?" Shen Boyan's lawyer flipped through his documents and said nothing. The power of attorney was notarized. To overturn it, they'd have to prove Shen Tinglin was coerced or mentally unfit when she signed it. But 3 months before the accident, Shen Tinglin was the highly successful head of Shen Group. Who would dare say she was mentally unfit? The plaintiff has no objection for the time being. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Shen Boyan's legal team attacked from every angle: public order and good morals, marital ethics, conflict of interest, but every blow was parried by Chung Yan with solid legal provisions. During the final statement, I suddenly stood up. "Presiding Judge, may I say a few words?" Chung Yan glanced at me but didn't stop me. The judge nodded. I looked straight at Shen Boyan. "Mr. Shen, you say I'm an outsider and I don't deserve Shen Tinglin. You're right. I really don't. But you're not sitting here today to protect your niece's marriage. You're here so that the 38% stake under her name becomes unclaimed assets." I pulled a USB drive out of my pocket. "This is the full chain of evidence for 3 related party transactions at Shen Group over the past 6 months. The actual controller of the acquiring companies is Zhang Gudong, Mr. Shen Boyan's brother-in-law. Across these 3 deals, Shen Group's total assets have shrunk by 470 million yuan." The courtroom fell silent. Shen Boyan's face turned from red to white, then from white to ashen. This has nothing to do with this case." He shot to his feet. "It has nothing to do with the case," I nodded. "But it has everything to do with you. I told you." I set the USB drive on the table. "No one touches what's hers." Outside the courthouse, Chung Yan lit a cigarette. "You had that USB drive ready this whole time?" "Yeah. You know it's against procedure to present that in court, right?" "It's not evidence for this case." "I know. Then why did you bring it out?" "It wasn't for the judge." I glanced back at the courthouse doors. "It was for Shen Boyan." Let him know I've got dirt on him. That way he'll think twice before making his next move. Chung Yan blew out a smoke ring and smiled. Kid, you're sharper than you look. Too bad you didn't put that brain to use sooner, or you wouldn't be in so much debt. ... Lawyer Chung, did you learn how to talk like that from Songyi? Back at the villa that night, I brought a bottle of beer into her room. I sat down by the bed, twisted off the cap, and took a long drink. Wifey, we won today. Your uncle's face was more dramatic than my high school exam report cards. It's a temporary win. I held the beer bottle up in front of her and clinked it against thin air. Cheers! You get air, I get beer. We both get what we want. The more I drank, the more I talked. Honestly, I'm scared. Not of Shen Boyan. I'm scared that one day you'll never wake up. And all this talking will just be me talking to myself. The beer bottle was empty. I leaned over the edge of the bed, resting my head on my arm, my face turned toward hers. We were so close. Close enough to see the curve of her eyelashes. Shen Tinglin. First time I'd called her by her full name, not Boss Shen. Wake up soon. I have so many things I want to say to your face. It only counts if I say it to you in person. The heart monitor beeped steadily. I closed my eyes. What I didn't know was, 3 seconds after I closed my eyes, Shen Tinglin's right index finger curled slightly. It brushed lightly against my wrist. The 3rd year of my marriage to Shen Tinglin. I couldn't remember when I'd stopped seeing her as just a confessional. She was my habit. 5 minutes of checking her vitals every morning, listening to a song with her at noon, sitting by the bed chatting for an hour or two every night. And what we talked about changed too. From rants, boasts and jokes, to things like, the weather's nice today. I opened your curtains so you can get a little sun. The osmanthus in the yard is blooming. I broke off a sprig and put it by your bed. You can't smell it, but it's the thought that counts. Your hair's getting longer. I put it in a ponytail for you. It's a little messy, sorry. I watched 3 tutorials to learn how. That night I had a little to drink. Not much, just 2 cans of beer. But enough to make me say things I could never say sober. I sat by the bed. The lights were off. Moonlight seeped through the gap in the curtains, painting a pale white line across her face. Shen Tinglin. Do you know what I'm most afraid of right now? The heart monitor beeped on and on. I'm most afraid of you waking up. As soon as I said it, I froze. Then I laughed. Funny, right? 3 years ago I was scared you'd never wake up because then I wouldn't earn my pay. Then I was scared you'd never wake up because who'd take down your uncle? Now I'm scared you will wake up. I paused for a very long time. Long enough that a cat meowed outside the window. Because once you wake up, you won't need me anymore. You're the chairwoman of Shen Group, worth billions. Your face belongs on magazine covers. And who am I? Just a caregiver mooching off you for food and a roof. The first thing you'll do when you wake up is divorce me. Then I'll have to go back to my messy, broke life. Eating instant noodles. Dodging the landlord. Maxing out Wabi. I bowed my head. But you have to wake up. If you don't, Shen Boyan will get what he wants sooner or later. If you don't, who'll run your company? If you don't. I took her hand. 3 years. Her hand was still cold. But I was used to it by now. Used to wrapping her hand in mine, warming it with my body heat. If you never wake up, who am I gonna talk to? Even though you don't talk back now. But what if you do wake up? What if you talk back? Even if all you say is get lost. At least it'd be real, not just something I made up. I looked up at the ceiling. Moonlight spread across it in a pale, cold sheet. Shen Tinglin. I think I kinda like you. The second the words left my mouth, my heart skipped a beat. Like someone had pushed me from behind. Not like gratitude or pity. It's that feeling of calm I get just looking at you. That feeling where my hands shake when I do your hair. That feeling where the first thing I want to see every morning is you. Even though you have the same expression every day. But I still want to see it. I let go of her hand and wiped my face. Whatever. You can't hear me anyway. Just drunk rambling. I'll forget all about it when the sun comes up. I leaned over the bed, resting my head on my arm. The alcohol was hitting me, and my eyelids grew heavy. Good night, Boss Shen. Sweet dreams. If you can even dream. Don't dream about me. You couldn't handle it. My voice trailed off, until all that was left was the steady sound of my breathing. I fell asleep. What I didn't know was, a single tear slid from the corner of Shen Tinglin's eye. It ran down her cheekbone and soaked into the pillow. Her lips moved slightly. No sound came out. But if anyone had leaned in close, they could have read the shape of her lips.
2 words.
Lucy. Then she lifted her hand slowly, gently. Her fingertip brushed the hair I'd resting on the edge of the bed. Just one touch. Then she pulled it back. The number on the heart monitor jumped from 68 to 87. It took a long time for it to slowly come back down. In the next room, Song Yi sat in front of the security monitor, staring at the 2 people on screen. The teacup in her hand was stone cold. She took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. A document lay on the desk. The title read, Shen Tinglin Consciousness Recovery Assessment Report, 4th edition. Date, 1 year ago. Song Yi watched Lucia, asleep on the edge of the bed, and Shen Tinglin, crying with her eyes closed. She sighed softly. It's about time. The next morning, I was still leaning over the bed when my alarm went off, my neck so stiff it felt like someone had twisted it all the way around. My first thought when I woke up was to check the monitor numbers normal. Heart rate 68, blood pressure 120/78. I breathed a sigh of relief. Then I remembered what I'd said last night. My face burned instantly. I shot to my feet, slapped my cheeks, and chugged a big glass of cold water. All right, move on. She can't hear you. Nobody knows. Pretend nothing happened, I said to my tired reflection in the mirror. You didn't say anything. I washed my face, changed clothes, and carried Shen Tinglin's nutrient solution into her room. I sat down like usual, and started my daily update like always. Morning, Ba Shen. License plates ending in 2 and 7 are restricted today. Doesn't affect you. For breakfast. Nutrient solution, same old, same old. When you wake up, I'll treat you to hot pot. I told you that before, don't forget. When I said don't forget, I suddenly remembered what I'd said last night. My face burned again. I quickly changed the subject. Oh right, did I say something last night? Oh right, I said I had a crush on. I didn't finish the sentence. A hand clamped down on my wrist. I looked down. 5 fingers, pale, alive, gripping tight, holding my wrist firmly. My brain short-circuited for half a second. Then I looked up. Shen Tinglin had opened her eyes. For the first time in 3 years, her irises were dark brown, misty from just waking up. But her gaze was startlingly clear. Clear enough to make my scalp tingle. She looked at me. Her lips moved. Her voice was soft, like a piece of paper drifting down from high above. But I heard every single word loud and clear. Who did you say you had a crush on yesterday? Say it again. My brain raced through a million possibilities in a split second. Possibility 1. I'm dreaming. Possibility 2. I haven't woken up yet. Possibility 3. I'm still fucking dreaming and haven't woken up. You're awake? Shen Tinglin looked at me. She didn't answer. That look wasn't the look of someone who'd just woken up from a coma. It was the look of, how to put it, someone who'd been watching a 3-year drama and finally got to the finale. Wait a second. I stepped back, the leg of the chair scraping sharply against the floor. You just woke up, right? Just now? This second? Shen Tinglin let go of my wrist and slowly sat up. Her movements were gentle, but it was obvious way too smooth for someone who'd been in a coma for 3 years. Cold sweat broke out on my back. Ba Shen, listen, what did you mean by yesterday? Aren't you supposed to know nothing? Shen Tinglin leaned against the headboard and reached up to fix the lopsided ponytail I'd done. Then she spoke. Her voice was hoarse, but her tone was shockingly calm. Lucy, huh? The senior you had a crush on in college. Joe Linlin. She played basketball, right? My pupils blew wide. You farted during that job interview. The interviewer was Mr. Wang, the one with glasses? You said he froze solid on the spot. My legs turned to jelly. You're terrified of cockroaches. Once you spotted an American cockroach in the middle of the night and called the police. The operator even asked if you needed a SWAT team. I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself. You cried watching that Korean drama, replied 1988. The scene with Deok Sun and Young Hwan. You said don't tell Xiao Tiju about this no matter what. My voice cracked. How long have you been awake? Shen Tinglin looked at me. The corner of her mouth tugged upward just barely. But that tiny curve was like a knife, slicing clean through my last shred of hope. 1 year. 3 months, 17 days. 1 year, 3 months and 17 days. 472 days. Which meant, she'd heard every single one of my late-night monologues, including the joke about her uncle's face being uglier than my Huabi debt, including the complaint about 9 mosquito bites, and my demand for reimbursement, including the part where I messed up her ponytail 3 times and called myself clumsy, including everything I said last night. Every single word. You said last night that what you're most afraid of is me waking up. Shen Tinglin's voice was soft. Because once I wake up I won't need you anymore. You said you think you kind of like me. Then you said, whatever, you can't hear me anyway. How hot was my face right now? Hot enough to fry an egg probably. I wanted to run. I really wanted to run. My legs had already turned toward the door. But Shen Tinglin's hand closed around my wrist again. Not hard. But I couldn't move. You also said one more thing. A faint trace of amusement crept into her voice. Don't dream about me. You couldn't handle it. I did dream about you. You were right. I couldn't handle it. In my dream, you were still telling me the story about farting in your interview. I sank down into a crouch. Not because I was moved. Because my legs had turned to jelly. I literally couldn't stand up. Lucy, you're done for. The most mortifying moment of your entire life has arrived. News of Shen Tinglin's awakening sent shockwaves through the entire Shen group within 48 hours. The medical team arrived first. A swarm of doctors and nurses packed the ward, running tests for an entire afternoon. Conclusion. All vital signs recovering well, full consciousness, normal speech function. Motor function requires rehabilitation, but no obvious permanent damage. A miracle. The attending physician said, repeating the word 3 times as he flipped through the test reports. Song Yi arrived second. She stood in the doorway and stared at Shen Tinglin for 30 seconds, then took off her glasses and wiped them. Miss Shen Song Yi. Shen Tinglin sat up in bed. Her voice still a little hoarse, but her tone had already regained that spine-chilling calm. Thank you for everything. Song Yi put her glasses back on and smiled faintly. It's my job. She glanced at me. I read about 8 layers of meaning in that look. 7 of them were, I knew this would happen, and the last one was you did passably well. I huddled in the corner, shrinking into myself, wishing I could fold myself into a sheet of A4 paper and stuff me into a filing cabinet. Shen Boyan was the 3rd person to find out. They say he was drinking tea with someone when he got the call. His teacup slipped out of his hand and spilled all over the table. He made it to the care villa in 20 minutes. When he pushed open the ward door, his face was a complicated mix of shock, fear, and forced composure. Like a gambler who'd just gone all in, only to see his opponent lay down a straight flush. Tinglin? You're awake? Shen Tinglin sat up in bed, propped up on 2 pillows. Her gaze when she looked at Shen Boyan was as flat as plain water. Uncle. Long time no see. Shen Boyan's Adam's apple bobbed. Yes, long time no see. I rushed over as soon as I heard you were awake. Did you? Shen Tinglin cut him off, her tone completely flat. Sooner than you rushed to court to have my marriage annulled? Shen Boyan's mouth opened and closed. Tinglin, that was uncle. Shen Tinglin tilted her head slightly. I may have been lying down, but I wasn't deaf. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. Shen Boyan's face went white. So many people coming and going, saying all kinds of things, thinking I couldn't hear a word. She paused. Heard all of it. A week later, Shen Group held an official board meeting. Shen Tinglin sat at the head of the table. She wore a black suit, her hair tucked behind her ears. She was thinner, but the aura in her eyes was sharper than it had been 3 years ago. It wasn't the cold of ice. It was the cold of a scalpel. Everyone in the room could see it. The real leader of Shen Group was back. First item on the agenda. Shen Tinglin flipped open the document in front of her. Her voice wasn't loud, but every word landed heavy on the table. Over the past 3 years, multiple related party transactions at Shen Group are suspected of asset diversion, resulting in cumulative losses of over 700 million yuan. She slid the documents to the center of the table. Inside was the evidence I'd spent 2 years gathering: transaction records, bank transfers, business registration details for the shell companies, the full equity structure tracing back to Zhonggudong. Every entry was clear as day. Shen Boyan sat across from her, his face turning from white to ashen. His lips moved, like he was about to say something. But Shen Tinglin didn't give him the chance. Second item. The acting chairman has committed gross dereliction of duty during his term. The company will launch an internal investigation and reserve the right to pursue legal action. Tinglin. Shen Boyan finally spoke, a tremor in his voice. These are all normal business decisions. Normal? Shen Tinglin flipped to a page. Selling a 200 million yuan subsidiary to your brother-in-law's shell company for 30 million. You call that normal? Shen Boyan's lips trembled. That was market conditions were bad. Market conditions were bad, so you pocketed the difference? Shen Tinglin closed the file and looked up at him. Uncle, I'm giving you a chance to walk away with some dignity. Resign. As acting chairman, return all illegal gains. And I won't press criminal charges. Shen Boyan braced his hands on the table, his knuckles white. He looked around the room, at all the directors he'd once courted. Not a single one met his eye. With Shen Tinglin alive and fully conscious, no one wanted to side with a disgraced loser with dirt on his hands. Shen Boyan slowly slumped back into his chair. His shoulders caved in. That carefully maintained ageless face looked 10 years older in 10 seconds. His voice was like a deflating tire. Your resignation letter, Shen Tinglin said, her tone completely unwavering. By the end of the day. She closed her folder. Meeting adjourned. After the meeting, only Shen Tinglin and I were left in the hallway. She was in a wheelchair, her legs were still in rehabilitation, she couldn't walk far. I pushed her toward the elevator. We walked in silence for a moment. Boss Shen. The way you were in that conference room just now. Yeah? You were really cool. She didn't turn around. But I saw the tips of her ears turn a little red. Stop calling me Boss Shen. What should I call you then? You called me by my full name once, didn't you? She remembers. Of course she does. She remembers everything. Shen Tinglin. I said it out loud. You said you dreamed about me that day. I did. Really? No. Kidding. She turned her head slightly, showing me her profile. The corner of her mouth curved upward. A little more than it had in the ward that day. But only a little. I really did dream about you. More than once. My hand on the wheelchair trembled. The elevator doors opened. I pushed her inside. The second the doors slid shut, she reached out from the armrest of the wheelchair and found my hand hanging at my side. Her fingertips were cool, just like they'd been every time for the past 3 years. But this time, she squeezed it tight, all on her own. 3 days later, Shen Tinglin held a press conference in the living room of the Care Villa. It wasn't a huge event, but all the top financial media outlets were there. She sat on the sofa, a dozen microphones lined up in front of her. Ms. Shen, how would you assess the turmoil at the company over the past 3 years? It's being handled. What was the first thing you did after waking up? Shen Tinglin glanced sideways at me, standing in the corner. The first thing ... I shook my head frantically. With every ounce of head-shaking strength I'd accumulated in my 29 years of life. She looked back at the reporters, the corner of her mouth twitching. The first thing was confirming that my husband really did come talk to me every single day for 3 years. The reporters perked up. Mr. Lewis stayed by your side this whole time? Yes. Every day? Every day. What does he usually talk to you about? Shen Tinglin glanced at me again. My face was beyond pale at this point. It was practically transparent. He talks about a lot of things. Shen Tinglin's tone was mild. Like what? Like, don't. I finally couldn't take it and darted out from the corner. Shen Tinglin, if you say any of that out loud, we're done for life. The room went dead silent. Every camera swiveled toward me. Shen Tinglin looked at me. Then she smiled. Not just a tiny curve of the lips. A real smile. Her eyes crinkled into crescents, her whole face softening. It was the first time I'd seen her smile in 3 years. He usually says to me, Shen Tinglin turned back to the reporters. Good morning, Boss Shen. That's all. The reporters looked a little disappointed. I let out a huge breath, my legs so weak I almost collapsed to the floor. But as I walked past her, Shen Tinglin reached out and tugged at the hem of my shirt. She leaned in close to my ear, her voice so quiet only I could hear. I won't tell anyone about the interview fart, but you owe me a hot pot dinner. And she let go of my shirt. Don't go back on what you said last night. I looked at her. She looked at me. Then I did something I would never have dared to do 3 years ago. I bent down, right in front of a dozen cameras, and kissed her on the forehead. The sound of camera shutters exploded into a roar. Shen Tinglin's ears turned bright red all over. You're insane. I've been insane for 3 years, I said. Ever since the first day I talked to you. That night, I sat by her bed as usual. She leaned against the headboard holding a cup of warm milk. She was no longer a comatose patient with her eyes closed. She was a living person who could blink, frown, and roll her eyes when I said something stupid. Lucy. Will you still talk to me from now on? Now that you can talk back, I'm a little scared. Scared of what? Scared. You'll hold a grudge. All those things I said about your uncle. He deserved it. Fair enough. There was a moment of silence. Then, will you keep talking? She stirred the milk with her head down, not looking at me. Her voice was softer than usual. I looked at her long, downcast eyelashes. They looked exactly the same as they did 3 years ago, and yet completely different. Because this time, they moved. I will, every single day, until you get sick of hearing me. She lifted her eyes to look at me. There was a faint smile in her gaze, and just a hint of uncertainty. I won't get sick of it. How do you know? Because I've been listening for 472 days already, and I'm not tired of it yet. The moon outside the window was beautiful, just like it had been that night 3 years ago. The difference was, this time when she took my hand, her palm was warm. When the hero was mired in debt, and at life's lowest ebb, he entered a contractual marriage with the Comatose female CEO, Shen Tinglin, merely to earn a living as a paid caregiver. Yet as they spent day after day together, genuine affection gradually grew in his heart. Facing a villain who coveted the family fortune and sought to seize power, he bravely stepped forward to defend her company and assets, despite their enormous status gap. For 3 years he poured all his thoughts and tenderness into words for the sleeping woman. What seemed like one-sided confessions were in fact heard and treasured deep in her heart, for she had long regained consciousness. After Shen Tinglin woke up, their love fell into place naturally. The story enlightens us that sincere companionship is never unrewarded, and ordinary perseverance carries immense weight. Origin and circumstances can never define a person's character. Responsibility in adversity and sincerity in daily interactions are far more touching than glamorous status, and will eventually receive the tenderest echo from time.